Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Superhuman Radio. Today's an important show. I say that before a lot of shows, and I really believe that. It's not like I'm just trying to get you hyped up and then feed you a bunch of nonsense. The number one killer of humans today is type 2 diabetes. The CDC and other agencies that track mortality in populations, the top four killers: heart disease, cancer, stroke, dementia, all can be conclusively tied back to the onset of type 2 diabetes. So if the government really cared and they really wanted to address illness and mortality in America and abroad, in the UK, it's probably true in everywhere around the world, they would stop saying, oh, cancer or heart disease are the number one killers of people. Because by saying that makes it hard to treat the problem. When you realize the real problem is living with type 2 diabetes, if the government said that, then we could address metabolic issues, dietary issues, but they won't. It's kind of like if I'm driving my car and a sniper on the highway shoots me, okay, and I veer off the road and I go down a ravine and my car explodes and the coroner says that I died because of a car accident or a car crash, that would be a blatant lie because I don't get shot. There's no car accident. There's no car crash. It's called lowest common denominator logic. Well, lowest common denominator logic dictates that honest, critical thinking people say, oh, all of the heart disease is a result of living with insulin resistance, all of the strokes, insulin resistance, all of the cancer, insulin resistance, and dementia. You know, who gets dementia, right? People who are type 2 diabetic. But they don't. So there are two missions for this show for the next couple years. The first one is to get people to change the dialogue around the CDC's top killers and be honest and say, those are all offshoots of living with type 2 diabetes. The other one is my mission to force dog food manufacturers to start putting carbohydrate content on dog food. That's a totally different thing. So today we're going to talk about this fact and give you some solutions. And hopefully people will listen hard and take something good away. I want to thank our title sponsor, Legendary Foods, makers of the Tasty Pastry. The Tasty Pastry is now better. I was just in Los Angeles visiting with the folks at Legendary, and I can tell you that this iteration is amazing. You really will think you're eating pastry. It's not like, oh, this tastes good enough, and because it's low sugar and high protein, I'm going to eat it. No, you're going to go, this tastes so amazing, I'd eat it if it was bad for me. True story. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary. Use the code SHR10 to save 10% off. And of course, listen during the commercial break for the secret phrase. It's not a word, it's a phrase today. and email it to onair@superhumanradio.net with your mailing address, and we'll send you a box of tasty pastry. And there'll be the new ones, so you'll be excited. So there you go. And now, without further delay, bring my buddy on, who I really enjoy spending time with, and that's Wade Lightheart. How you doing, Wade?
Doing great. Just got back from a 3-week vacation. So I was away with no social media, no emails, no telephone, no text messaging, nothing. Completely off the grid. And it was a remarkable experience, which has, I would say, input and repercussions moving forward in my life. So it was a very interesting experiment and a successful experiment.
Did you have angst when you came home and you realized now you had to be connected again?
No. What I would say is I've just been clear about putting in some very definitive parameters about how I'm going to engage in the benefits of these technologies without letting them overtake my life, which can easily happen. You know, I always say we're kind of like monkeys with phones, you know, and the dopamine addictive component and the continuous stimulus response mechanism that these devices have are pretty much overwhelming for the human nervous system as it is. And so how do we leverage the benefits with limiting the liabilities? You know, I think that is going to be the conversation for the next few decades with the rapid rise of technology.
I noticed that young people suffer from fragmented thinking. If they think about something and they don't take action at that moment, they forget it. And that's the result of the, ping, zing, ding, bing, bing, I've said this before on the show and some people probably remember me saying it, but if I told you, well, what would you consider it mind control if I could get you to pick something up? If I could get you to pick, you had no intention of picking up, and all of a sudden I do something and you pick it up. Isn't that mind control?
Absolutely.
And that's what these devices are doing right now. They are a form of mind control.
Absolutely.
Okay, so would you agree with my statement, my summary, that the number one killer of people today, populations around the globe, in developed nations, let's say, is actually type 2 diabetes, because all those other diseases are a result of living with type 2 diabetes. You think that's a true statement?
I do. To concur with that, there's certainly some significant research. I had a Dr. Jacoby on my podcast who has researched this over the last 30 or 40 years. And his extrapolation from his research, he's very well versed in the area, is that all plaquing or inflammatory responses inside the body are a combination of sugar and trauma. So the plaquing that causes dementia, the plaquing that causes arthritis and arteriosclerosis, in any of these osises or itises, is directly related to refined sugars inside the system that the body, like you get plaque on your teeth, if you eat some sugar and you get plaque on your teeth, well, that plaquing response, particularly if it's involved with some sort of trauma, physical or psychological, is what's causing the cutoff of blood supply, oxygen, nutrients, and the removal of waste products from any given cellular environment. Eventually, the cells start to dysregulate or go rogue or not operate in the way they were designed. And based on your genetics or epigenetics, the weakest part of your system is going to be the most effective or affected. And unfortunately, and I was talking to a friend of mine, he's a Harvard medical surgeon. He put the first stent in the body. He was part of that team. He's a great guy. He's 80 years old. And we had a long conversation about a few weeks ago. And I said, what's happened? What's happened inside the medical industry? Like, what's gone wrong here? What's gone wrong with our educational institutions? And he says, I can tell you exactly when it happened. He says, it started in the 80s. And I'm going to correlate this to understand and to kind of collaborate with what you said about the gunshot with the car accident. What is he said in the 1980s, he says that he was a general surgeon, and he goes in and he's a heart surgeon specialist. He's a vascular surgeon. That's his specialty. But to become that, you need to be a generalized surgeon first. And he says for his entire career, he worked on emergency call all the time, because he says, I want to be the guy that gets the phone call. Somebody got stabbed, somebody got gunshot wounds, somebody was in a car accident. That always happens at 2:00 in the morning. He comes in, he says, I open the guy up, I take the knife out, I take the bullet out, I throw things back up, and the body heals itself. He says, I don't heal people. I remove the most inflammatory trauma that is going to take them out, and I stop the bleeding, sort of, and then the body heals itself. He says, I don't heal anybody. I'm just stopping the major blunt force trauma that's occurred. Even though he was a vascular surgeon, we continue to do this. He says, but in the 80s, what started to happen is there was a hyper specialization. So what would happen is surgeons or other people in departments, I only do kidneys, I only do hearts, I only do brains, so when it came to the generalized aspect of medical components, they stopped doing this and they stayed in these compartmentalized fields. Well, that is now branched out into the aspects. There's an institution and an organization for every single disease. There's a whole medical research. There's a conference. There's pharmaceutical drugs that are developed for this. But very little is addressed in a general standpoint. And so what you have is you have people with a very fragmented part of the story, one piece of a bigger puzzle, and nobody is able to look at the whole piece and see what's going on. And the people who do, such as yourself, myself, people who are providing broad-based, generalized solutions that make logical and practical sense based on real-world interactions, as opposed to double-blind research studies in micro-controlled environments that are never replicated in whole, as well as a combination of observational skills. Just look at what is.
Right.
That is where the people who are experiencing robust, long-term, healthy, high performance over their course of their life are going to. The people who are staying inside that medical model, that fragmented, compartmentalized, go to the expert, go to another surgeon, go to another guy, get another pill, get another product, see another expert, see another research. You go down that model till you either die, or you get so frustrated, you step back and you look up superhuman radio to finally get some real world inference. And here's the other piece to that. The onus. We have developed a culture of outsourcing our intelligence to other people, as opposed to just leveraging common sense. People don't know where their food's gone. People stopped exercising regularly, which was built into, it wasn't called exercising for most of human history. It was called existence. You had to physically work every single day.
Right. Right.
There wasn't widespread pharmaceutical interventions. You had to use herbs. You had to use natural things. You had to use fasting. You had a restriction of calories. You didn't have a store open in 24 hours a day feeding you sugar all the time and a vast array of things. So what we have is the diseases of technological innovation and rampant congested civilization. That is the issue. And the species, and our species, humanity, is splitting. It is literally, we have become an influence on both our evolutionary potential as well as our ability to terminate the experiment. And, starting with Professor Olshansky in 2000, it was during the Bush administration, who came out in the New England Journal of Medicine that the disability adjusted life expectancy of America was at 60 years old. The life expectancy had gone up into the 80s, but you're spending 20 years in a lousy quality of life. And who wants
that? You're in a facility, pooping in a diaper, waiting for someone to change the channel on the TV for you.
On 17 different types of medication. You don't know where you are. You can't remember things. You feel nothing. And your biggest decision of the day, are you getting the applesauce or the mashed peas? And who wants to live like that? I don't. And I don't think any listeners here. But going back to this blood sugar issue, and I will say one thing. Let's be clear about something. The third leading cause of death in this country is medical error. But I would say the first leading cause is actually low resolution thinking by the individual. Ideally, once you turn yourself over to the institutions, you do not have the right to criticize those people. They're doing the best that they can. They're experts. They've worked hard. Most doctors and people in these, they're very empathetic, compassionate, hardworking, high achievers who are limited to like one or two tools in their toolbox because they're in a regulatory and a legal box or an expertise box that only allows them to do that. Because if they go out that, they get slammed, they get sued, they get taken out of the thing, they get frustrated, they get chastised, they lose their medical careers. And many of the best generalists give up their medical credentials so that they can actually address the real issues, because it's like bailing out the water. So that's the state of the world that we're in. But at the end of the day, we have to address this blood sugar issue. This is killing our kids. This is killing our quality of life. It is creating, I believe, trillions of dollars of damage and lost resources and lost quality, and the count of is lost quality of life and the value that people got, lives cut short, people compromised, all these things that you talked about. And it's completely unnecessary. It's completely avoidable. But to get out of it, we need answers to this in a reasonable way.
Well, but in order to have answers, we need to start addressing the real issue. This is my frustration. We look at cancer. Oh, it's a genetic model. We look at heart disease. You know, everything has this its own little silo, and no one's being honest about why this is happening. And so a couple interesting things. One of the jobs of the American Medical Association when it was formed was to promote an idea that people could not be expected to understand what doctors know.
Correct.
Okay. It was, the idea was to make the doctor the nearest thing to God, where patients wouldn't question. And that was a brainwashing process of people, because before that, people knew how to do everything. They gave stitches to each other. They had answers for all this stuff, because throughout history, they had to take care of themselves. And then allopathic medicine stepped in and says, no, you're stupid. We know better. And then they started doing things like giving you mercury for syphilis and all these other stupid ideas that harmed a lot of people. But they always got a pass, because the idea was, well, look, they know better than you. You know, you just need to shut up and take it. The other thing I want to mention is the two things. By the CDC's own numbers, 880,000 people a year die from taking medication the way it's prescribed. It's called polypharmacy. A doctor prescribes a new pill for you. It interacts with the old pill. You die. And so, and I think if this pandemic did anything, because the powers that be kept riding, another 3,000 people died today. So it's 1.5 million people a year, and it's actually plus greater than 1.5 million people a year die from the four top killers: cancer, heart disease, stroke, and dementia. So, you could just say, let's just use 12. That's 1 million people a month, folks. 1 million. Now, we're getting outraged that this virus has killed another 3. I think Australia has 3 deaths now. They locked down the whole country, right? But meanwhile, every day, all day long, people are dying from completely avoidable diseases. And the government has every opportunity to use this pandemic and go, let's get America, let's get the UK, let's get Italy, let's get healthy. But the problem is, in order to do that, they have to abandon the people who pay them money for their campaigns, which are the big companies, big pharma, big ag, and the big food companies. The other thing I want to mention is during the pandemic of 2020, the rate of children 12 and under who have type 2 diabetes tripled. Think about this. I'm 63 years old. No one I ever grew up with had type 2 diabetes. Nobody. And don't get me wrong, we didn't eat a perfect diet, but we were much more active. You have kids now that are sequestered. They just sit home and they play video games all day. So our population faces the greatest challenge ever. And our government won't talk about it. It has nothing to do with climate change. We are going to be gone before the world gets unlivable. We're going to be gone if we stay on this track, because the expected lifespan has dropped again.
Yep.
Every year for the past 7 years, it's dropped like a year, 1.2 years, we are now at the bottom of all developed nations. And we take 5 times more medication per person than any other country out there. So this is a wake-up call. And our government refuses to be honest. They refuse to say all these diseases that are killing us are due to type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is completely reversible in 99% of the people who suffer from it in 6 months or less. But what do you have to do? You have to change the way you eat. You have to change the way you sleep. And you have to change your inactivity levels. But those 3 things, and you're not on any meds for type 2 diabetes anymore, and now the trajectory of your lifespan just got better.
Yep.
So, and I got to be honest with you, I'm losing faith in the word processed, Marlene. Eat real food, not processed food. Cooking food is processing it. So the term processed needs to be, it needs a finer point when we talk about processing. But I agree, just eat real food, which Dean Paulson asks this question. Don't worry, the junk food. Oh, I'm sorry. I got to the wrong one. He says a diet comprised with mostly organic produce, meat, fish, veggies, dairy, balanced. Would that cover the base of an optimal diet if calories taken into account? The only thing I would add to that is stay away from foods that spike blood sugar, because real food will, you know what's really funny? This is fascinating to me. I just learned this from Ron Penna this week. We went after high fructose corn syrup with a vengeance. The 90% high fructose corn syrup was the really bad culprit. Do you know agave is exactly the same? It's 90% fructose and 10% glucose. And if you go into Whole Foods, it's like, oh, agave, it's nectar from God. You can eat all you want. No, you can't. So the reality is the low carbohydrate diet, no matter how you get there, seems to be the magic. And people hate to say that because you have people that are out there writing books for diabetics saying, well, you can have cake if you want to in moderation. And no, not if you're already sick. That's like saying to somebody who's an alcoholic, you can have 1 or 2 drinks. Don't worry about it. No, you can't.
And that's what people, I think, don't want to get bone crushing honest with themselves. They do not want to take responsibility for their choices. They want to outsource their problems to someone else and outsource the liability of the choices that they've made. And until we take ownership of our life and direction of our life, you're guaranteed to and I think this is part of our education system, is that we defer authority to other people from the time we are 6 years old, which limits learning. The evidence is well versed. It's not that people don't have the ability to learn radically as they age. It's that the system of education creates an authoritarian type view where we defer authority to other people else and we lose the joy of actually learning things. And if you look, for example, of the writers of the American Constitution, most of these guys were in their 20s. They were polymaths and all these different characters. If you look at if I go back to, my grandparents and the amount of things that they were mechanics and plumbers and carpenters, and they could read and they could write and they would, play an instrument and play, like they were versed in all these different areas. And today, what do you do? Well, I'm a procurement specialist for Biggie Megacorp, and I buy wonder widgets from China. That's what I do. So the hyper compartmentalization of not just our medical industry, but our own individual industry has led people to believe that they're not capable of lateral thinking. And what I love about your podcast here is that you are inviting people to look at their lives in a obvious and an ownership way. And that's why I love being here, because, I sell products that, we'll talk about that solve a lot of different problems if they're used in a way that with people who are addressing their issues for themselves.
Right.
And you can't, I always say, you can't supplement your way out of a bad lifestyle, but the right supplements in conjunction with your lifestyle can help effecate your response much faster, or give you a sense of, oftentimes it gives you a sense of, hey, if I can get a result relatively quick, if I can drop my blood sugar in the next 30 days, a significant amount, what happens is it invites the person to go, well, what else can I do? Can I build from that? And that's our major message.
Small successes, build.
Yeah, it's like that first time picking up a weight. Okay, I can only pick up 20 pounds. But, I started training when I was 15 years old, and all of a sudden I could train a little bit, and suddenly I could pick up the 25-pound weight.
Mm-hmm.
And even though, it was small gains as a young man, that process taught me that I could be in control of some aspect of my life, and I could make progression if I was willing to be consistent. And the key is consistency over time is what equals results. And I'm hoping that we can help people who are struggling with this, or with people who struggle with this, to invite some consistency of addressing these issues over the long term and making those adjustable lifestyle changes that will allow them to live a healthy, happy life.
So high sugar levels cause high insulin levels, and together they destroy the body. They destroy the nervous system. They destroy the organs. They cause plaques. They cause inflammation. They cause all sorts of horrible problems. So managing blood sugar should be the goal. Even if you aren't type 2 diabetic, if you learn to manage blood sugar, you won't struggle to lose body fat.
Correct.
Enough. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about a product and weave it into the discussion about how this product could be used to offset the damage being done to your body while you start to live a lifestyle that's designed to not feed disease. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Superhuman Radio. Being superhuman means being conscientious about the choices we make. White Oak Pastures is superhuman when it comes to raising livestock. They're committed to animal welfare, land regeneration, and rural revival. They responsibly manage the entire process from the pasture to your doorstep. High-quality, pasture-raised, great-tasting meat from a farm you can trust. Full nose-to-tail selections. They even have options for your pet. Go to shrnetwork.biz/White Oak and use code SHR20 to save 20% off your entire first order. Is there something interfering with your happiness or ability to achieve your goals? BetterHelp can help. They will assess your needs and match you with a licensed therapist. This is not a self-help or crisis line. It's professional counseling done securely online. They have a broad range of experts and are available worldwide without having to wait in an uncomfortable waiting room. Get the help you need and start living a happier life today. Go to shrnetwork.biz/BetterHelp. That's better, HELP, and receive 10% off your first month of counseling when you use use the code SHR. Knoll Creek Hemp Company's Delta 8 soft chews are the premier Delta 8 product on the market today. Knoll Creek's Delta 8 is produced from high-quality hemp-derived CBD oil, and soft chews are manufactured using proprietary nano-emulsification technique that ensures the Delta 8 soft chew will timely deliver the desired effects cleanly and consistently from piece to piece. In a space where at least 70% of the products fail to meet label claims and where most users of conventional hemp products are left disappointed, Knoll Creek's Delta 8 soft chews are a product you can trust. Visit shrnetwork.biz/Delta8. That's DELTA and the number 8, and use the code SHR20 to get 20% off your first order today. Attention meat lovers. I've discovered a snack with just 2 ingredients, meat and salt. That is so tender and delicious, you almost can't believe it. That's right, no soy, sugar, or other crap. Our partner, Carnivore Snacks, nailed it with these mouth-watering snacks. They have a variety too: ribeye, pork loin, leg of lamb, and more, all sourced here in the USA from regenerative farms. Claim your superhuman offer from Carnivore Snacks today at shrnetwork.biz/snacks. That's SNAX. Use the code superhuman for 15% off your first order, plus a free 2-ounce pork loin. Redcon One's new BAR bar is the ultimate soft-baked protein-packed snack bar, powered by peanut butter. Perfect for while on the go to help curb hunger or sneaky sweet tooth cravings. With 20 grams of protein, use as a meal replacement bar or when you're in need of a high-protein snack. Eat a Redcon One bar as a midday snack or for fuel before an intense training session. Go to shrnetwork.biz/Redcon1 and use the code SHR25 and save 25% off these delicious bars today. Blood sugar. I keep saying the number one killer is insulin resistance. Managing blood sugar is the key to living long and aging well. But we all like to eat starchy carbohydrates and sugars from time to time. How do I manage this? I use a product called Blood Sugar Breakthrough by Bioptimizers. This easy-to-take supplement is the result of numerous tests to find the absolute best formula for maintaining healthy blood sugar. Blood Sugar Breakthrough works to safely lower blood sugar after meals so that you can maintain a healthy weight and redirect carbohydrates to your muscles where they can be burned as energy. This means you'll avoid the worst effects of high blood sugar, like weight gain and advanced aging, while enjoying more stable energy, mental clarity, and fewer cravings. Go to shrnetwork.biz/blood sugar and save 10% with code SHR10 today.
You're listening to the Superhuman Channel. Don't hate us because we feel good.
Welcome back. You know, I did a show in 2007 or 2008 with a scientist from Rutgers, and they had published a study that showed for the first time that glucose signaling is what causes cellular senescence. Now, all these years later, we're all focused on senescent cells and aging. Well, when your blood sugar spikes, cells in your body are literally becoming old cells, like boom, that fast. And so anytime you can keep blood sugar from spiking, you're doing an amazing thing. There are occasions where I am going to eat something sweet. I know I am. So I would use Blood Sugar Breakthrough before a meal, 20, 30 minutes before a meal. Is that the appropriate way to use it?
Yes. And I would add one other piece that I think a lot of people aren't aware of in the blood sugar conversation, and that there's 3 components that are involved in blood sugar management. Number 1 is insulin sensitivity, which is what most people are dialed into. But there's 2 other pathways, which are called glucose transport agents as well as glucose disposal agents. And the bodybuilding community, from which we're both familiar with, are very are more versed than your average medical doctor who's been just taught, hey, take insulin. And that kind of put us in a unique situation. And of course, my business partner, Matt, why we got into this whole thing, his mother-in-law lost both of her feet because of blood sugar issues, insulin management. And his wife had a huge blood sugar. So genetically, there was some issues. The diet, the lifestyle wasn't good. His wife's blood sugar was 240 when they took it. This is like go to the hospital type situation. Right. And so he loved his wife. And so he's like, we've got to really address this. And so that was the driver between understanding, because he knew that based on the genetics and where things were going with his wife, she was going to end up like his mother-in-law, her mother, who had a blood sugar of like 640 and lost both her feet and is very compromised in her life now. But we've been able to develop some methodologies that have been able to assist with that situation. In fact, his wife was able to take his blood sugar from 240 to 120 in 20 minutes and consistently do that with no lifestyle changes, but was also now has initiated lifestyle changes. So it's really great to be able to impact that. And we've been able to see that across the board, anywhere from 20 to 50% drops in blood sugar, depending on depending on the person. And it's because we address it from multiple biopathways. We don't just address it from an insulin stuff, because a lot of people will start to get involved in these blood sugar things, or they start doing dietary changes and they don't see the changes. And that's because oftentimes they have plaque buildup on their internal organs. They have plaque buildup on their muscles or in their brain. And there needs to be enough time for our body to get rid of that. And these other agents can assist in that process of managing a high blood sugar.
So Marlene Turner, who she and I are the same age, says, I'm almost 63. I am 63. I turned 63 in June. Trying to get off metformin by eating more pastured meats, veggies, some fruit, and potatoes for carbs. Cholesterol has changed positively for the first time. Any thoughts or help? I kind of, when first of all, I am not a fan of metformin, and I have been a vocal opposition of the use for metformin for many years, when everybody else, Jay Campbell used to tell me I was stupid because there's so much good research on metformin. A study was just published 2 months ago that shows that diabetic women taking metformin have a higher risk of breast cancer, not a lower risk of breast cancer, which I was shocked, but it makes sense to me. Metformin sensitizes fat cells. One of the things I learned from Dr. Scott Connolly is the reason why you never see really lean people on metformin is because it keeps fat cells growing too. That's one of the ways it helps to get rid of blood sugar in the blood. But the only thing I'd say to you is this. There is nothing like a low-carb diet. Keep your carbohydrates. If you can tolerate it, you got to go slowly, because if you don't want to have a moment of hypoglycemia where you start getting the shakes and the sweats, but just start out slow and start to make your goal every couple of weeks to lower your carbohydrate intake till it's only 30 or 40 grams a day. When you get down there, your diabetes, your insulin resistance will resolve on its own in just a few months. Go ahead, jump in, Wade.
Yeah, and I think in order to make that, just on this comment with Marlene, so thanks for quoting, and I think there's some good points that she's put in here. And that is, she's eating real food. If you look at pictures of, you go to different hotels or you see Life magazine from the 30s and 40s, where you see people on the beach. And everybody kind of looks the same. There's no really fat people. Everybody's about the same height, about the same weight. And then you see a picture in the modern world and everybody looks ballooned whales. Well, what's changed? Fast food. Let's be clear. Fast food. Cut out all fast food. KFC, McDonald's, Jack in the Box, whatever it is, Burger King, Pizza Hut, all these things, get rid of it. Stop that. And if you're going to eat your meals, do your meat, your carbohydrates, your fat, and lots of fiber. Get the fiber in there as well, because you got to feed the bacteria. The bacteria are going to determine, we're in probiotics. We've got a research lab in Europe where we're doing all these tests. And what's very interesting, when you increase fiber to around 70 grams a day, you start to see magic happen in blood sugar management and the shifts in the microbiome, which actually makes you crave the food that is supporting your health and not crave the food that we're addicted to, which fast food is very addictive. Who hasn't had all that stuff? I mean, I'm a guy that I can't wait. You give me a bag of chips. I go into a place with a bag of chips around. I will eat the whole bag and not even offer one to someone else. I'm a complete addict to potato chips.
Right.
I can't have them in my house. Like I will just open up and eat because I have an addiction, and I own that. And so the only way around that is to eat real food and to do it consistently. And then as you monitor these things, you start to wean things out. You will start to determine and naturally select the foods that are supportive of your health and vitality. So I think, Marlene, you're on the right track. And I think you would just continue down that road and give yourself 6 months, give yourself a year, and you'll be surprised at the body's amazing and how it will just regulate.
There's other issues about metformin I want to mention too, and Dean Paulson points it out. Metformin blunts mTOR-C. Metformin blunts protein synthetic response, muscle protein synthesis, which means basically that over time you will suffer from sarcopenia. You will start to lose more and more muscle. That's not a good thing, especially as you age, because especially for women, if you lose your ability to ambulate, to walk, you fall a couple times, and then they want to put you in a nursing home. That's really what happens. So you don't want anything that's going to erode muscle. The other thing is, the jury is out about Akkermansia. Akkermansia is a microbe that we see proliferate in the guts of carnivorous humans, people who eat a lot of meat. They have more Akkermansia. Metformin increases Akkermansia through a completely different mechanism. So the gut changes from metformin, we don't know if they're good or bad. We have no idea. I do know this, that when people first start taking metformin, they literally almost poop on themselves for a couple of days until they get their dose dialed in. So it's doing something to your gut, and we can't say it's good. All the people who support metformin go, oh, it's got to be good because metformin is good. No, it doesn't have to be good. And hence, metformin is linked to higher rates of breast cancer in women taking it. So I would get away from the pharmaceutical products. And I would, frankly, I would give something like a blood sugar breakthrough a try. If you go to the website, shrnetwork.biz/blood sugar, BLOODSUGAR, all one word, and use the code SHR10, you'll save big because you can buy multiple bottles and save even more. But you can take blood sugar breakthrough, take it 25 minutes before your meal, and it will keep your blood sugar from spiking. The other thing I would do, Marlene, is if you haven't already experimented with a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor, it's fascinating. I wore one for 3 weeks. I learned so much about the food. First of all, my blood sugar doesn't spike at all. It never spiked, no matter what I ate. But it'll help you figure out if those potatoes are really working for you or not. It'll help you figure out if the fruit is really working for you. And one other question I want to address here while we're talking about fruit, Dean Paulson says, should you limit fruit? Not necessarily. It's different for everybody. But remember, fruit is sugar. And even though it's bound to the flesh of the fruit, it's still sugar. We love to say, well, this sugar is different. Oh, this is honey. It's okay. No, it's still sugar. Avoid sugar at all costs. The occasional piece of fruit, make sure it's a low. If you like bananas, eat them before they're ripe, when they're still a little green on the corners of the peel, and stick with berries and stuff like that. A very, very low sugar and higher in fiber. But sugar is sugar. There is no quote unquote, well, this is good sugar.
I'll add one piece on that. There's some interesting research that if you eat fruit in its single form, only one fruit at a time, it creates less of a blood sugar response. And that's coming from some type 1 diabetics that I had on my podcast. And they've actually managed type 1 diabetes on a completely plant-based diet. So they eat a lot of fruit, but they only eat their fruit. If they're going to eat strawberries, they eat strawberries. If they're going to eat bananas, they don't eat bananas, strawberries, kiwis, and mangoes all at the same time. They said that would cause the blood sugar spike for them. I thought that was really unique and interesting.
Well, it shows you that the pancreas is prepared to do this job, and then when you say, well, do all 6 of these jobs at the same time, it doesn't do it well.
Exactly. And that's when we get into the disposal agents of glucose. So let me talk a little bit about the technical side of things so people understand how we address blood sugar breakthrough. And so when you look at glucose transport, and I'm going to get a little technical here, but you're looking at taking glucose from the bloodstream. You got two different transporters, GLUT4 receptors. They're present in your heart, your muscles, and they're insulin dependent. Insulin stimulation, that's what causes the movement of GLUT4 to the cell surface. So what's interesting, and that's why if you go for a walk after you eat, it lowers blood sugar probably better than anything else, right?
Yes.
Because one of the easiest things to do when you eat, don't sit there at your meal, go for a little walk for 15, 20 minutes. It's super simple, right? That's a great way to do that, and that will diffuse, put blood sugar also into the muscles, not into fat cells. Then what happens is you have GLUT1, and those are in every cell. Those are not insulin dependent. They're particularly high in the brain and red blood cells. Okay, so you have to understand those are the two transport mechanisms. Now, insulin sensitivity, okay, that's the ability of fat, muscle, heart disease to move GLUT4 from the cell surface in response to insulin. So what causes these resistance? You get inflammation, you get cytokines and belly fat, you get cellular privileged expression, you get GLUT4. All of that stuff is where we're all familiar with, right? But that's where you get the elevated fatty acids in the blood, okay, on insulin sensitivity. So that's why oftentimes cholesterol issues start to become a problem, and really particularly triglycerides. There's a lot of good things about cholesterol that goes on. We talked about that in some of our shows. So. But more importantly, it's high oxidative stress. And over time, that's what leads to mitochondrial dysfunction, the ability to burn body fat, circadian rhythm dysfunctions, chronic overeating. So if you have a heart monitor that you can watch your heart variability, it's very interesting what happens when you eat sugar and these or a prolonged kind of overeating component. So, and then finally, you have glucose disposal agents. So when you have extra sugar, glucose going around in the tissues, an agent will help shuttle that glucose in either to your muscle or like your liver or something like that, or your fat cells. So AMPK is the energy sensor of your cells. That's kind of monitoring that. So when you have low ATP and AMPK, we'll tell your cells, bring in more glucose into the cells. Exercise and most glucose disposal agent supplements work by activating AMPK. So this is how you're looking at things like berberine, banana leaf, cinnamon. These are things that help glucose disposal agents. Sinulin PF is another one. Bitter melons, fucoxanthin is another one that can help with this thing. And this is the area.
Fucoxanthin, by the way, was an effective myostatin inhibitor.
Yeah. Well, it's blood sugar and myostatin and mTOR is very fascinating.
Fucoxanthin, which was liberated from red seaweed about 10 years ago and used to suppress myostatin.
Yeah, amazing. I didn't know that. That's really cool. And gymnemic acid also reduces appetites and craving, because most people, when you get on the blood sugar train, the problem when you go to the social occasion, you have the anniversary cake, or you have the dessert at your favorite restaurant or whatever, the blood sugar spikes, and then you wake up the next morning and you're like, oh my God, I'm so hungry. You know what? I'm just going to go down to the cafe here at the hotel, and boy, that pastry looks a lot better. You know what I mean? So all of these things are agents that we looked at in how we could put together a formula that addressed all three pathways on multiple levels, so that we could get almost like a shotgun approach of things that work. We tested a whole number of products, both independently in combination. And that the first 30 days of testing, we narrowed it down, and then we started putting combinations in various dosages. And what we had as our entire company, right, we were all wearing continuous blood sugar monitors, and we were tracking. And so you have the variance in diets of everybody in our company. There was like 20 people doing this. And by using blood sugar breakthrough, we were able to achieve a 20 to 40% drop in blood sugar across the board for everyone in our company that was doing that. And from that, we narrowed it down to one formula that outperformed everyone else, which was a combination of all of these agents in the right proportions to really make an impact. And the good news is for people who are suffering from blood sugar, because we have a health company and most people are into health in our company, people who are suffering from blood sugar issues are seeing sometimes even better gains than that. We're now getting the testimonials on blood sugar. And for people who are struggling or know someone that's struggling, they can try our product, they can test it, they can track it. And if it doesn't produce significant life-changing drops in blood sugar, we just give people their money back. But we're that confident it really works. This
Right.
thing, it's awesome, and we're really excited about it because we think that we can make a difference and help empowering people by this little aspect to give them a kickstart, and then allow them to start adding some of these things we suggested: walks after meals, going to natural food product, getting out these other things. And before you know it, 6 months, 12 months now, they got their life back.
So Marlene, I forgot about this, but Wade just reminded me. There's a study that shows changes in postprandial after a meal blood sugar levels were affected better by a 15-minute walk than metformin. They compared metformin to walking after a meal, and walking after a meal controlled blood sugar better than metformin, and that's natural. And you don't have to go far. You can walk 7 minutes away from the house and 7 minutes back, and you're done. Just do it right after a meal. Okay, so I want to put this question up, and we are very, very fortunate to have Joel Green in the audience. And Joel's brilliant. So, Joel, I'd like you to chime in on what I'm about to say. Robert Thompson says, how does honey affect blood sugar and insulin? Paul Sanadino says less spikes, also protects against cavities. Okay, I don't know Paul, and I've heard nothing but great things about him, but I'm calling bullshit, and I'm going to tell you why. For every 100 grams of honey, 82 grams is sugar. And of that sugar, it's 50% fructose and 50% glucose. Very much like sucrose, table sugar. I don't understand why honey, unless somebody's going to tell me, well, there's fiber in honey and you digest it slower. Maybe gastric emptying is slower with honey, but to me, honey is still sugar. It's like agave. It's like sugar. It's like maple syrup. It's still sugar. Joel Green, is there any magic that would support these claims that you'll get less blood sugar spikes from honey, and also it's better for cavities? I'm going to defer to a guy who knows about this stuff. What about you, Wade? Do you have any opinions on honey?
You know, it's like everything else. I believe everything in moderation if you're going to use it. Is honey better than high corn fructose sugar? Yeah. Is it something that you can build a dietary lifestyle around? No. So, pick your poison and pick the time of your poison and limit it. It's really
right.
You can't build a dietary philosophy around honey.
And I stay away from sugar as often as possible. I really do. I really have very little sugar in my life, and I do that on purpose. It's not by accident, and it's because I believe. Look, there was a study published last year that showed that a low sugar, low carbohydrate diet reversed signs of aging in the aged brain. That, to me, that's like, are you kidding me? Like, what else do you need to hear about eating less sugar and less carbohydrates? And I'm not talking about vegetables. Vegetables are great. Eat them if that's what you like, if that's your thing. But it's the sugar, it's the pasta, it's the rice, it's the bread, it's the stuff that literally hits you. Acellular carbohydrates don't just hit the bloodstream faster, but they feed pathogens in the stomach. They keep the bad bugs in your stomach alive because they can eat them because they're already broken down to the simplest form. I say stay away from a carbohydrate-rich diet. Just stay away from it, and you'll fare better. I was hoping that Joel would maybe post.
And I would say refined carbohydrates is the first component.
Yes.
If people were to look at my lifestyle, they'd say my carbohydrate consumption is quite high. My fiber is also off the charts. And my blood sugar levels are lower than most people on a ketogenic diet. I don't suffer from that. And I've been doing this for over 20 years. So it's about, and I exercise on a daily basis. I do those lifestyle interactions, and I don't go out and eat a whole bunch of sugar. I have events where I go out and I gladly participate in birthday cake and ice cream at my friend's house. I don't feel a shred of guilt. I take some blood sugar breakthroughs before I go. I make sure I have lots of fiber before I eat it, and I go for a walk if I can after, or dancing, so preferably, because hopefully it's a celebration of some sort, and I like to dance.
Yeah. We're going to take a break. I just want to put this up again. So if you're somebody who is having difficult losing body fat, if you have some of the signs of insulin resistance, like a distended stomach because you have visceral fat building up, or you are or full-blown type 2 diabetic, and you want to try something that is natural, that won't cause muscle wasting like metformin, this is the product to give a try. Blood Sugar Breakthrough. If you go to shrnetwork.biz/blood sugar, all one word, and use the code SHR10, you'll save an additional 10% off. And remember, everything that Bioptimizers produces and markets has been rigorously refined through science, so much so they're so confident that all their products work that they have a money back guarantee. If you use the product and you're testing your blood sugar and you're going, holy crap, my blood sugar is not getting better, send the bottle back. They'll refund your money.
And we even cover the shipping.
Nobody does that. They don't cover the shipping on purpose. You know why? Because then somebody goes, oh, it's going to cost me $9 to ship it. I'll just keep it. I'm not going to bother with that.
No, we want to make sure that you have an extraordinary experience from all points, customer service, or shipping, our experience. And we want the product that works. And if it doesn't, for whatever reason, you get your money back. It's really simple. It's really easy. And that's why we've been around as long as we have and are growing at an exponential rate.
There you go. All right, we're going to take our last commercial break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Superhuman Radio. Every day, there's a new wellness trend. Eat that, do this, avoid those. How do you know where to start or who to trust? Inside Tracker helps you cut through the noise by analyzing your blood, your DNA, your lifestyle, and your fitness tracker to provide you with a science-backed, trackable action plan on how to live, age, and perform better. Personalized, one-size-fits-one recommendations to help you optimize you. For a limited time, Inside Tracker is offering Superhuman Radio listeners 25% off the entire store. Go to shrnetwork.biz/inside tracker, INSIDETRACKER, to save 25% off. Change begins on the inside. Hey, this is Carl Lenore. Superhuman Radio is the longest running health, fitness, and anti-aging podcast in the world, going into our 16th year of continuous production. If you have a product that you think would appeal to the Superhuman Nation, we can get you on the air quickly and inexpensively to help promote your brand. Join the ranks of some of the largest and most successful companies in the world who know how great it is to be affiliated with Superhuman Radio. Contact Dan Kapitsky today. That's DAN.KOPITZKE at superhumanradio.net to learn more. Remember those rectangular toaster pastries you used to love when you were a kid? Well, Legendary Foods has just made them better. The new cake-style tasty pastry is like nothing you've ever had before. With 20 grams of high-quality protein and less than 1 gram of sugar, you'll feel like you're cheating, but you're not. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use the code SHR10 to save 10% off your purchase of tasty pastries. Now available in cookies and cream, red velvet cake, birthday cake, blueberry, strawberry, brown sugar cinnamon, and hot fudge sundae. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use code SHR10 today. Blood sugar. I need to share with you all a revolutionary new wearable technology called HapBee. HapBee allows you to enjoy the effects of caffeine, alcohol, nicotine, melatonin, and muscle relaxants without actually ingesting anything. Yes, really. They figured out the unique magnetic signature of each of these molecules and recorded them. Just put the HapBee on, choose the signal you want, and it starts projecting the magnetic signature of that molecule that you choose, like coffee for feeling alert. Go to hapbee.com/SHR. That's HAPBEE.com/SHR to learn more more and unlock an $80 discount exclusively for the Superhuman Radio listeners. Being superhuman means being conscientious about the choices we make. White Oak Pastures is superhuman when it comes to raising livestock. They're committed to animal welfare, land regeneration, and rural revival. They responsibly manage the entire process from the pasture to your doorstep. High-quality, pasture-raised, great-tasting meat from a farm you can trust. Full nose-to-tail selections. They even have options for your pet. Go to shrnetwork.biz/whiteoak and use code SHR20 to save 20% off your entire first order. If you spend any amount of time sitting while at work like I do, I have the chair for you. The Backstrong chair from All 33 is the most comfortable office chair I've ever sat in. That's the truth. Their patented technology allows your body to move the way it's supposed to move while you sit. Designed by a chiropractor to position your pelvis in a way that stacks all 33 of your vertebrae into perfect alignment. The benefits of this ideal posture include relief of back pain, deeper breathing, better digestion, improved circulation, greater focus, sharper memory, and more productivity. Start experiencing these benefits today. Go to shrnetwork.biz/move and use the code SHR100 for a $100 discount on your Backstrong chair.
This is the Superhuman Channel, where we use oxygen for the power of good.
Welcome back. We're talking today with Wade Lightheart. We're talking about the number one killer of Americans. I'm sure people in the UK, this is true, Italy. It's type 2 diabetes. It's not heart disease. It's not cancer. They are just offshoots of the disease. That's who gets cancer. That's who gets dementia. That's who gets has strokes. And unfortunately, it's a mystery. The government doesn't address it. They don't talk about it. And the little things that can be done to change your outcome: walking after a meal, taking a product like a blood sugar breakthrough, choosing better food, staying away from the sweets and the high load carbohydrate meals, being more active, fixing your sleep. Just 2 nights of bad sleep can make you pre-diabetic. 2 nights. So you're not going to kick your diabetes if you don't fix these things. Robert Thompson makes a point here, and this is a good one. He says, a gritty soldier's an Army Ranger, loads up on carbs prior to a long run, then consumes candy and sweets during the run, says it will protect his muscles. He tried it. He said the workout was terrible. What do you think about carb loading?
It's a great it's a great concept that doesn't really apply in the workplace.
Right.
The reality is that you can make what I call pre-event voodoo. And that is, I'm going to load this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do these things. And, whether that's stacking super amounts of caffeine, blood sugar, and okay, you get a one and done or a second one that maybe that works. But your body regulates those things out very quickly, and then it doesn't work over long term. And what you see is oftentimes these ideas that are done in our vigorous and robust youth come home to roost as we're older.
Yep.
So you eventually
they don't work. They don't work at all when you're older. That's it.
And you got to cash that check that you wrote that seemed like it worked when I was 22 years old. But when you're 45, you found out that it didn't. And this is the beauty of being an athlete early in life. And the advantage is you eventually hit a peak and you start to see the inevitable decline of your skills far sooner than the average person notices that decline.
Yeah, because they've never challenged themselves.
They've never went to that high-end component. And when you do this, it adds a level of humility and an understanding that, oh, wait a second, I'm not going to be able to do the things that I thought I could do, in the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So how do I mitigate and slow that inevitable decline in aging? You're going to decline, you're going to age, you're going to degenerate. But I can mitigate this through lifestyle choices, through good for healthy habits, and attention to detail of the components of my life. And that's the big upside of being an athlete. Or if you haven't been an athlete early, I think that you're at a significant disadvantage because you never found your high-end peak. You start to notice maybe cognitive decline, memory loss, but then you're usually into significant damage into the body.
Right.
And that's a problem.
Last question, I'll let you go because we're going over here. Robert Thompson says, do BCAAs raise blood sugar or insulin? He uses BCAAs intra-workout. Have you ever heard of anything about BCAAs raising insulin or blood sugar?
In some people it does, and some people it doesn't. And that might not be related to the BCAAs. It could be the filler that's put into it. It could be other agents that are additional into that. So I think, and depending on the state of that person, so if someone's a diabetic and you're taking BCAAs, it could cause an insulin spike. Like coffee can cause an insulin spike.
Yeah, because coffee will raise blood sugar without food.
Correct. So sometimes people are seeing an insulin spike and concording it with blood sugar, and that's not necessarily the case. And so I would say in some cases, yes, that's true for those reasons.
All right, so last time I'm going to say this. The product is called Blood Sugar Breakthrough, and it is exactly that. If you go to the website shrnetwork.biz/blood sugar, all one word, and use the code SHR10, you can get your bottle for 10% off. Give it a try. And don't forget, this has a prophylactic effect too. Even if you're not somebody who thinks, oh, I need to lower my blood sugar, but keeping your blood sugar as low as possible while not passing out, and this won't make that happen. It's never going to lower blood sugar to dangerous levels like insulin can. But maintaining low blood sugar is the key to aging well. I'm telling you that. It's that simple. If people understood that it was that simple and really focused for a good 6 months on getting their blood sugar as low as possible and maintaining optimal functionality, they will add years to their life. There's no doubt in my mind about it. So there you go. Thanks for being here today, brother.
Always a pleasure, Carl. Have a great week, and we'll see you
too. Talk to you soon. And that's it for today's show. Show Bioptimizers Love. They are a long-term sponsor of this show. And as you know, they have a money-back guarantee. Nobody does that unless they believe in their product. Okay, that's it for today. We'll see everybody tomorrow with more Superhuman Radio.